Okay, current time 12:48. We're 12 miles, 10 minutes from totality, and got a ring around the sun. You can see it to the west, kind of. See it to the west there. All the darkness. Yeah, looks dark to the west, the horizon. Let's see if I can get a shot of that. Okay, that's looking southwest. Okay, this is south. I don't know why the pan is so goofed up on this thing. There's the west. Yeah, there's the west. That's where it's coming from. Yeah, and that's a look around. You can see. Yeah, you can see the car headlights right there. Oh yeah, it's dimming here.
Oh. The apocalypse is about to happen.
103.
Oh my God!
Still got a little slow.
Look at all the things.
There it is. Oh God.
That's beautiful.
Oh my God.
Incredible. It's like the eye of Sauron.
Yeah. Focus.
I didn't realize there was like rays around it. That's amazing.
Yeah. Now, what I came for is I want to get some of the landscape because nobody ever gets shots of what it's like all around. Okay, we're going to pan. There's south. There's southwest. There's the west. There's the northwest. There's the north, northeast, east. What's going on here? Our apocalypse. The aliens have come.
The tripods are about to start making trumpet sounds.
Yeah.
Oh, look! You can see like a star or something up there.
A star. Yeah. The camera's not really capturing this very well, but there's a. Oh yeah, there's a tiny star. There we go. Oh God, yeah, there we go. I should have done that to begin with. I had the exposure too high.
Shine out.
Oh, yep. There comes the sun. Look out! Wow! Look at that. It's like a xenon bulb or something.
Yeah. It's a giant light bulb in the sky.
Yeah, totally. It's because it's coming from a tiny point.
It's like white.
Yeah, I can't even begin to tell you how incredible that was yesterday, and that's the path of the eclipse from about 12 to 2, and we were in this. I guess I can't paint over the top of this channel, but I'll show this to you in a little bit. But that's the animation, and I guess one of the most impressive parts of the eclipse was just how quickly everything went to totality. Within like 5 to 8 seconds, everything just changed very rapidly. And let me switch over here to the outside camera. And yeah, my son, he described it as like the apocalypse when it was changing there. And then you look up and you see the sun exactly like in those photos of where you see the corona. It looked exactly like that to the naked eye. So once in a not once in a lifetime, we got 2024 coming up, and an annular in 2023. And West Texas, San Antonio, and the Rockies area. So anyway, that's my footage of the eclipse, and as you saw, I wanted to capture what was going on around the landscapes and the different horizons, because we don't hear that too often or see that. And one thing that we noticed is all the jet activity overhead during the eclipse. So I guess there were a lot of planes right under that shadow, and we could definitely hear that down there on the ground. So anyway, yeah, we hope at least some of you saw a little bit of eclipse action yesterday. It was quite a day, and of course nothing like that since 1918 in the U.S. Let's head over to the charts, and I'll show you a little bit of yesterday's eclipse too on there. Where are my charts? I'm trying to get it back up to speed here. Okay. Yeah, there's today's weather. You can see we've got a strong front coming south into Oklahoma and Texas, so we're getting a little bit of this frontal thunderstorm action from Memphis to Texas and extending back into the northeast U.S. There's a little bit there in the Nashville area. And if we bring the sector all the way up to the northeast, we've got an actual tornado watch up in New York, a couple of other severe thunderstorm watches, and yeah, there they are. Tornado watch on the backside there, and just kind of an MCS running from about, I guess maybe that would be Harrisburg, up to around, looks like Burlington, Vermont. Okay, so that's, yeah, you can see how strong that frontal system is. We've got a 992 millibar low there in Quebec. So we're getting into kind of like an early fall pattern. Strong cold air advection across the Great Lakes. Now yesterday, let's see here, we can run the polar orbiter data back. Yeah, there's the August 21st footage from, this is from Aqua. And I don't really see where the eclipse is on this. Let's try another channel, Terra. And yeah, there it is. Looks like the sensor not really able to deal with the calibration on this stuff, so we get this red dot here. Very cool. Let me bring up the state outlines. So that would be right around 12:50 p.m. Central Time. And we were located right in this area here. I was photographing from maybe a little further, yeah, right in there. Found a little break there, and I had stayed earlier during the nighttime in a place in Everest, Kansas, a little guest house. And of course I woke up to all this clouds, which the models did not forecast very well. They pretty much failed on all this warm air convection that developed over Kansas. It got started around Wichita earlier during the morning and moved northeast, and what I saw there was a lot of scud, mid and upper level cloud. It was overcast in this area with a little rain. So I was heading northeast trying to search out a break, and I was not sure if we were going to make it out, and finally I made it up there. So that was a little bit of what I mentioned on Twitter, reverse storm chase in action. So I was having to use some skills there to get out of it. But I did have to look at the satellite data and do a little bit of nowcasting. I saw the plume out in this region earlier, and I knew that the drift was going to take it like that. Kansas City was going to be in trouble. So, yeah, I saw that hole coming up, and things actually worked out. And I feel bad for those in Kansas City. There was really bad traffic around St. Joseph, and I guess it looks clouded over there. And Things looked a little better in this region here than I expected, to tell you the truth. And look at that, pretty devoid of cloud. And I expected scattered to broken layers. At least the models were sort of hinting at that, but obviously we've got like few to scattered. So very good visibility all the way through Nashville and then out to the mountains. I heard that a few people camped in the forests here in North Carolina, and they did not see the eclipse. They were getting rain at the time, and they did not heed the advice that's out there to stay away from the higher terrain, because storms love to form along those ridge lines. So these people, if they moved maybe 5 miles away and got out in the valleys, and you heard me talking about the valleys a couple weeks ago, they would have been just fine. And hit or miss in South Carolina. Some clouds right here. And I heard that total eclipse of the Heartsinger was out on a cruise ship somewhere out here. And I didn't see the footage, but I wonder if they were able to see that. It must have been quite a performance. Further back, lots of traffic there in Casper to Denver. I don't know if you saw the traffic on Google Traffic, but it was pretty much red, and I heard it was 14 hours to make that journey. Pretty good through here, and you can see a little bit of smoke problem in Idaho, but there was great visibility. A little bit of smoke from these fires in the, I guess, the Cascades right there. So, yeah, I think overall, lots of people got a good show. And, yeah, let me know if you all saw anything. I'm kind of curious. Let me take a look at the chat and see what we got here. Andrew sent some shots of the eclipse, and I had some trouble extracting those. I'm going to have to move those out manually later tonight, and we'll check those out tomorrow. Yeah, if you all want to send eclipse photos, we can run those tomorrow and see what everybody saw, and make sure you mention where your viewing location was. Brian Toomey's back in the saddle at home base there in Florida. What a magnificent 48 hours, never to be forgotten. Sue M. enjoyed 95% eclipse. And we got Fred Reamer and Eddie W., Fun with Tech, and David Moore. Tornado Country solar eclipse footage. And Sue M. asked about the Earth cooling from the eclipse. Yeah, there is a temperature drop. From what I've seen, it's usually about 3 to 4 degrees, but that Wix sim that I talked about a couple of days ago, I posted a video with Tom Ahrensberger. That's a good program to use, and the demo will let you actually compute some of this information. So you can run your own eclipse study, and the amount of temperature drop you're going to get depends on the heat capacity of the atmosphere. So if you got dry air, you're going to get more of a temperature drop. And there's other factors that would play into that, but yeah, that does have an effect. And I've heard that the GFS, at least from what we saw, does not account for the eclipse effects. And I don't think the NAM does either, and I think they had to modify even the high-resolution rapid refresh to account for the eclipse. There is an HRRR eclipse page. Let me see if I can bring that up. Yeah, they were doing some experiments here with the high-resolution rapid refresh model. And there's some information about here what they were trying to do. And HRRR INCEPT does not include eclipse effects. So yeah, if there was a storm day on this date, I think we would have seen the model data kind of up in the air there. Ryan mentions same exact way as I saw it. Fred Reamer got some shots 13,000 feet over Alliance. Sounds interesting there. Ryan says, great footage. Sue M got 95%, had a fair amount of light, like outdoors with sunglasses. Much brighter than I expected. Yeah, it was a little bit brighter, even under totality for us. I was expecting things to be a little bit darker. I think the clouds were kind of throwing light around. And one of the first things I noticed when we were at about 70 to 80% totality was that I thought the sun was behind clouds. It was off, to the left of the cars we were driving. And I thought it was cloudy out, but then I looked and I saw the sun was out. So things looked very dim there. That was the first sign that I saw of the eclipse starting up. David Moore says, very nice, Tim. Thank you. Ryan says, amazing shadow over the USA. Felt like the end of days at the Biltmore residence in the backyard gardens. Fred Reamer mentions it was so cool to see all the cities light up on the ground. The frogs and crickets, Ryan says, went crazy during the shadow phase, like a chorus. Eerie feeling. Thomas Fortner was in Nebraska also for totality. Perfect sky. Kevin McKinney got 99.6. I think that's a distance east of Chattanooga. Watched from his brother's deck. Missed the corona, but got the surreal darkness and shadows. Birds got quiet where Sue M was. Thomas Fortner got about 10 degrees cooler in minutes. Ryan says Asheville had a perfect sky at 2:30 p.m., 3:30 looking southwest. Winds picked up, cooler temperatures dropped about 10 degrees. And Fred says the models were way off, talking about the run-up to the eclipse there, and at least in Kansas, I think. And Kevin says you can certainly see how it would terrify people with no warning. Hang on, I lost my place here. Yeah, I understand that Columbus, or at least some of those Spanish explorers back in the 14th and 15th century, or I guess that would be 15th and 16th, they would be aware of what time the eclipse would fall on the West Indies islands there in Mexico, the Aztec civilizations there, and they would leverage that to get concessions from the natives there, and they would throw around the risk of putting out the sun and carry forward with it. So I don't know if that's a myth or if that actually happened. That would be worth checking out, but that's just what I've heard. Some clouds and showers to the east and northeast where Ryan was. Biltmore Valley. Partly cloudy. 2 hours later, thunderstorms where Sue M was in Indiana. Great show near Grand Island, Nebraska. From Thomas Fortner, Funwood Tech, Sedalia, Missouri, cleared at 12:50 in time for totality. It was great. Mick has to wait till 2028 to see an eclipse in Australia. Mick says it'll pass directly over Sydney. Wow, that's going to be something to look forward to there. And Kevin says 2024 eclipse is in April. Would chasers rather have clear skies or catch storms? I think they're going to want to be out on the eclipse on that day. All right, let's head into the forecast here. Tropics, what is that looking like? Let's run this up to today. Much different picture over the states there. I think we've had the tropics kind of quiet down a bit. See just a couple weak waves. One here, another one starting to come off the West African coast. So not a whole lot going on, and the NHC forecast, we're just dealing with these two waves, one near the Yucatan and one near Florida, and this is the remnants of Harvey crossing the Yucatan there. So we're expecting the remnants of that to head into Texas, and the remnants of this wave here also moving into Florida and producing some rain. And due to the vast amounts of precipitable water that are in these tropical systems, we're going to see probably a very rainy pattern across Texas later this week. Okay, let's get reacquainted with the synoptic scale pattern. There's what we got for the surface map. This is pressure and thickness. Very strong thickness gradient. So we're seeing an almost classic frontal system. So we can just draw that out right there. So this is running from about New York down through the Tennessee area, down to North Texas. And then the warm front, that's very easy to pick out. Normally, that is hard to find, but in this case, we see it over Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, and northern Nova Scotia. And from north of Quebec City, we've got an occluded front leading up into this low-pressure system. Have a baroclinic high across the Manitoba and Dakotas area, bringing cool air southward. And then on the west coast, things look pretty quiet. I think probably just kind of a weak cold front approaching the Washington coast. Warm front near British Columbia, and then the occlusion coming onto the British Columbia coast like that. Looks like the monsoon a little bit weaker. There is still a little bit of shower activity there in the Four Corners area. And things look pretty quiet down on the Gulf Coast there. So that's what's happening. We'll look at the upper level pattern, and this is 500 millibars. There's that wave that went through the Great Lakes, and then we had that troughing right there on the west coast, and that's the reason we had trouble there in Kansas. That troughing helping to bring the upper level flow around to the southwest and pick up all that debris from the Four Corners area storms, also bringing up some warm air advection from North Texas, the Panhandles into Kansas. So that really kind of messed things up for the Kansas City area. And now for tonight, looking at northwesterly flow into the Great Lakes. So downstream from this ridge, we've got anticyclogenesis and probably a little bit of warming on the foothills of the Rockies there in Alberta. Okay, 250 millibar front. That's a look at the picture. Looks like the jet well up to the north in the Dakotas and Minnesota. And then we see a little bit of a subtropical jet from Arizona into the Four Corners. And then a look at the surface chart. I think a better way to do this is to bring up digital atmosphere. Okay, so there we can see the very cool weather coming in from the north. Nebraska there, 74 degrees, contrasting sharply with 90 that we saw yesterday in that area. Nice cool weather coming down, lots of 70s in the Midwest. So there's the cold front extending down through central Oklahoma. And then up in the northeast. Let's see what the dew points are like. We have lots of 70s in Pennsylvania. So that's helping to support a lot of this convection. And we had that tornado watch up in upstate New York. Lots of moisture to help support that. And I'm sure with the upper level flow, we've got the polar front jet in the area. That's another part of the equation there for producing severe weather. So yeah, look at that jet stream wind there. This is 200 millibars up at 40,000 feet. We've got 120 knots over Michigan. Very strong for this time of year. Normally we're seeing probably about 70 to 80 knots, and we're way above that. And then we'll go down to 850 and see what the tropical moisture is like. Very veered flow. So the Gulf is open, but a lot of the moisture being shunted eastward, and then we're bringing downslope flow into Texas and Oklahoma, which means very warm temperatures, possible inversion in the lower levels, but probably a lot of this warm weather is surface-based. We'll look at the SCUTs and check that out. Okay, yeah, there you can see the front. This is the theta temperatures, potential temperatures. There's the front there from New York all the way down to Nebraska. We lose definition in this area and then pick it back up in this area right here. So that would tell me there's a potential there for maybe a little bit of cyclogenesis in West Texas. Maybe like two separate systems there. And then a little bit of frontalysis in this area. And we can see the deformation zone looking exactly like that. Classic textbook, right? Okay. Satellite data looking like this. Very dry air coming down from the North Plains. Storms from Lubbock into Wichita Falls, Oklahoma City, and Fort Smith. Monsoon is still active, but not a whole lot going on in the Phoenix area or Las Vegas. Looks like it's mostly around Salt Lake City into the central Colorado area. And water vapor, where's our moisture? Looks like quite a bit of out in the Gulf there, especially with this northerly flow. Actually, this is the remains of Harvey over the Yucatan, and that'll be moving into the Texas coast over the next few days. There's a look at the SCUT from Fort Worth this evening. And we can compare that with the view outside. Well, sun has went down. The days are starting to get shorter and shorter. Pretty soon when we come in and do these weathercasts, we're just going to be looking at darkness outside. So, yeah, very steep lapse rates there. That's that very warm air, 96. We probably had some downslope flow there. And not quite enough moisture to support convection. So you can see here dew points mixed would end up being about 61, 62 degree dew points. So if we try to lift that with the afternoon highs, you can see the LCL, that's way up there, up at 750 millibars. So that would be storm bases at 8,000 feet. If we were able to get them going, you can see we would need temperatures in the mid and upper levels to be a lot cooler. And the way to have that is to get an upper level trough approaching the area. So we don't have that, so what happens is we get capping. So there's that capping, and that's enough to shut things down. And of course, very low lift and index. Very low CAPE. Since the lifted parcel pretty much matches the upper level temperatures or is cooler. Okay, we'll go ahead and head into the forecast. The mesoscale forecast for Texas, looking at this cluster of convection pretty much shutting down after dark. A few little like sub-mesoscale outflow boundaries, helping to keep the storms persisting for maybe a few hours, but by 3 or 4 in the morning, they're pretty much gone. Mostly affecting western Kansas there and parts of the Wichita Falls area. Okay, and the model's trying to keep a little bit of convection going in the Dallas area, so maybe we've got a little bit of upper air support helping to feed these cells here. And let's see what's happening up in the northeast. We can just take a look at what the models are showing. There's our MCSs there in New York. And of course, we can't forecast the individual cells with the models. That's not really what they're here for. But what we can use this for is to look at the general trend of the MCSs. And in this case, what we see over the next 12 hours, very rapid eastward development and possible bowing Maybe a little bit of wind potential in the New York City area as those blow through. And then those will be moving through Boston, probably just as showers around 1 or 2 in the morning. And then those will be out of the picture by morning. And you can see that gives way to northwesterly flow and mild, drier air coming into that region there. Okay, then for tomorrow, let's see what we've got. We're going to look at the NEM data. There's those storms all dying out up and down the line, but you can kind of trace out the general location of that front. And there's the remains of Harvey. And that's just kind of spinning around in the western Gulf and starting to make landfall on Texas around Friday into Saturday. And it looks like the NAM may be going for more of a track into Louisiana. So we'll compare the models and see what they're showing. Starting with, let's start with the NAM since we've already looked at that. The NAM pressure field bringing Harvey northward. This is Thursday. And then we go into Thursday night at the time of the weathercast, and we've got the remains just southeast of Brownsville, about 300 miles. And then by the time we do the weathercast on Friday, center of the circulation, a little bit of redevelopment off Port Aransas, maybe about 120 miles there. So we're taking kind of a north track there. And then by Saturday, well, we get to the end. That's the 84-hour point. So let's see, what did we have here? North-northwest motion. Okay, so extrapolating that, the NAM would bring that up into the Houston area around Saturday night or Sunday. So why is it not recurving? Possibly this big dome of high pressure across the northeast, northeast U.S. There's that dome of high pressure. There's the 1020 millibar line, 1014. So that's kind of like a big wall of cold air. You have air flowing away from that high pressure area, so that's kind of diverting the hurricane a little bit further to the west. Kind of attracting it toward this troughing here in the lee area of the Rockies. Okay, what do we got for the GFS? Here's the GFS. Let me see if I can zoom out a little bit so you can check out the date there. Okay, let's bring this forward into Thursday and Friday. For Friday evening, when we do the weathercast then, actually I better back that up. Friday morning, we've got it coming onshore around Port Aransas, Mustang Island, and into the Corpus Christi area. So a little bit further westward track with the GFS. So there you can see it coming onto the coast near Corpus Christi and around Kingsville, west of Victoria. And then when we do the weathercast, we're going to be having landfall of that system. I guess it may be a tropical storm at that point. And then we've got the big precipitation field to contend with. And that's going to be grounding onto Texas, and that's going to be a whole bunch of fuel just laying around for convection. Wherever there's boundaries, we're going to see convection going up on the weekend. So probably not a good idea to make plans. And you can see the system stalling out around the Austin area Sunday. So with the stalling, that's going to mean flash flood potential, mostly on the eastern periphery of that. So we're talking about Houston to Austin, College Station, Victoria, some possible problems there. And then we see it drifting up the coast into Louisiana. It's kind of interesting. And then the remains work their way up the Mississippi coast. And of course, I think this is probably prone to change. Okay, so you can see the track was something like that. Why am I kind of doubtful about this? Well, let me show you an interesting product here called the Global Ensemble Forecast System. This is where we have about 20 different runs, each with a slightly different output or a slightly different input. So we might nudge the field a little bit in one area, maybe bring up all the temperatures up like a tenth of a degree, for example. And let's see what we got here. Give me just a second to get this set up here. Okay, and there's all the different predictions. These are each one of these windows is like a different run. Okay, so I'm going to run this up to just past the weekend, and you can kind of see the hurricane here at the 120 hour point. This is on Sunday. And then by the time we get up to Tuesday, we've got different solutions. And I better zoom this in so you can see what I'm talking about. This is on Tuesday, okay? So we've got one member stalling the system in Texas. We have another one keeping it along the coast. And then we have another one moving it on to Mississippi. Another one keeping it around New Orleans. Another bringing it into Texas around Austin. Another one keeping it near the coast. So a lot of possible solutions here, and there's no way to know exactly which one is going to win. And typically what we do is we go with kind of like the mean prediction. So if you wanted to, you could go through these by hand and see which one has a consensus of, you know, a path that is kind of picked up by most of the runs here. So that's kind of the way I would probably go about analyzing that path. And then, of course, you can refer to the CMWF. And do we have an CMWF forecast? Let me see if I can bring one up. That European data is very hard to get. They're so finicky with the output. I really hate that, but it is useful for hurricane forecasting because we have just enough data to see what's going to happen. So here we are, the European model. You can see the storm there just southeast of Brownsville. And what we're going to look at for Friday and Saturday, they're going for kind of a western track. And then the remnants actually backtrack and move off, which is kind of weird. But actually what's happening is backtracking. This is more of this area here becoming very favorable for convection. And what we see here is a lot of convection offshore, a lot of pressure falls, and that causes the system to propagate southeast back out into the Gulf. So it's kind of like a regeneration out in this area. So new hurricane or new tropical system off the coast. And then they've got that moving up to Louisiana. And that's kind of what the GFS was doing. So I would expect this to be kind of a rainy forecast for anywhere from Texarkana to Austin southward. Some good rain potential there. And for Fort Worth and Dallas, I'm not too sure. That's very up in the air. And then we got the other remnants of this other system grazing the coast in Florida, tracking across Florida. So more rain there in the short term over the weekend, and then that'll move quickly out, and that looks like it is going to get deflected by that big high there. So that'll help keep that from moving into the Long Island area. Okay, so that's probably it for me. I just got in about 2 hours ago from the trip. 650 miles yesterday and about 100 today. So I need to catch up and rest and turn the AC back on. I've got it off because of the white noise. I don't like having that going on. Ryan says heavy flight delays from the northeast, 3-hour backup stacking up, bad weather holds with air traffic control. Newark and Philly are slammed. Yeah, that's bad there, especially with all the eclipse viewers returning today. Possible 30s overnight in Minnesota from Fred Reamer. Wow, that would be so nice right now. The eclipse cruise that Tim mentioned earlier, Ryan says, was Oasis of the Seas, Royal Caribbean cruise line off the South Carolina coast. A good amount of videos posted of the experience aboard the vessel off the coast of South Carolina. So yeah, I'm going to definitely check that out because I was wondering what was going on aboard that ship. Looks like they had quite a cruise adventure set up. Tropics very quiet for now from Ryan there. Southeast Texas looking to get Florida wet. Timing is everything with these weather systems, Ryan says. Kevin says, don't forget to like the video. Yeah, please definitely like that. Sue M. asks, will you make a separate eclipse video of the experience? That was mostly it. I didn't take a whole lot of video besides that. I did take a little bit of other video of my forecast process earlier that morning, and it shows you what I was looking at and what my plan was for avoiding the clouds, and we really lucked out with that. We had clouds on our tail by about 15 miles, and maybe I can show you a little bit how I use those different forecast techniques to come up with a forecast. Okay, so that's probably going to do it for me. So I appreciate you watching the webcast, and hang on a second, we got that a little bit too loud. Anyway, yeah, please like and comment and subscribe, and hopefully we will see you tomorrow. Take care and have a good evening.